Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Christina Fox, the CEO of Tech Alliance, and it was really difficult to cut those tunes because today actually feels like we're sitting around a bonfire with a group of friends to have a really terrific conversation. So I hope you enjoyed a couple of those tunes. They certainly made me feel like it was summertime. So as the Regional Innovation Center for Southwestern Ontario, Tech Alliance is truly committed to people who have big hopes, big dreams, and see real big opportunities. We are the place for dreamers, innovators, and world-changing ideas, and we are focused on building a competitively global thinking innovation economy that enables entrepreneurship, spurs accelerated growth, attracts ambitious talent and new companies. Before we get started, let me share a few key points. Everyone is muted today, and we have had a number of questions submitted in advance of our chat today. So if you've got a question that comes up, feel free to drop it in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And today's Fireside Chat will be recorded and available to each of you later on today. Please join me in welcoming members of our board of directors, Heather Macpherson and Brennon D'Souza. Heather is the president and CEO of the Minery and president at HR4 Limited. She builds software to help organizations get better. After 20 years of working with all types and sizes of organizations, Heather found herself becoming a little bit more frustrated with the manual workplace, where training, quality improvement, and customer satisfaction were independent of each other. Determined to change this, Heather set out to develop solutions that would make an impact. Established in 2010, the Minery is best described as a hybrid of technology and consulting services targeted for automotive clients. You may have heard more about Heather's work with the recent announcement of their health and safety audit, available to help support safe re-entry to workplaces. As we at Tech Alliance look to get into our brand new space at 333 Dufferin, we'll be glad that we use the audit. Thank you for sharing that, Heather. Also joining us is Brennon D'Souza, founder of Dibz. He leads all business development, funding, and sales for this startup's service solution. As the former media lead at OpenText and Christie Digital, he has built his reputation on being a creative problem solver for large organizations. His company Dibz is a real-time seat upgrade solution for existing ticket holders at event venues to give fans of performing arts and sports the option of upgrading their seats to better ones from unused inventory. As a music lover, I can't wait to use Dibz technology. Brennon is also one of our Grow Accelerator alumni, and you may have heard about Brennon's story featured just last week in The Logic. So here we go. We have a common belief then between our board, our staff, our entrepreneurs and residents, and the entire technology community that in pursuit of creating spaces where innovation thrives, we need to have conversations like these with all of you. And that's why we're so pleased that you've joined us today. And today is the first of our Fireside Chat summer series, just as we flip the calendar to the first day of summer. As we look at bouncing back, changing course, and boldly navigating obstacles amidst unprecedented times in business, we are fortunate to have two founders who are innovative leaders with vast experience in powering up when facing adversity, here to share their knowledge and experiences with resiliency. So today, around the bonfire, we'll talk about creating, disrupting, managing performance, accelerating improvement, and advancing the customer experience in the digital world. So let's get started. Heather and Brennon, both of you have developed software. Can you give us a brief overview of what you do and your value proposition? Heather, let's start with you.
Okay, well, you did a really nice job there in the intro. So I'll just kind of try to add a little bit. As you said, the Minery was born in 2010. We've been building software for 10 years. And we're unique in the way that we combine software with consulting. So that's just been a bit of a value proposition for us right from the beginning. We never just wanted to build the software and give it to our customers. We wanted to help them along the way. So we have two softwares. One is HR4 and the other is called Improve. We have now we have 22 employees because we have hired 2 summer students. And we are out of London and Toronto, so we have 2 offices. And a little fun fact for you is a couple years ago, to show a little bit of resilience, the Minery had a large office space at Dufferin and Richmond. So we sidelined and said, well, let's open up a co-work space. So we have a co-work space right there that is open or opening soon, so anybody can join. But the really neat thing about being a software builder is that we built a software to support the work hub. So it's just amazing having developers and creative people working with the Minery.
I love it. That's awesome. And Brennan, how about you?
Sure. So my background is media. That's the world that I've come from. I've done a lot of media for large organizations, both in Toronto, Waterloo, and I think being at that point where you're the creative engine for telling their story and their narrative, it kind of like led me to building my own startup. And that's exactly what I did. I took the knowledge that I gained over the years and founded Dibz. And what Dibz is, like you said, it's a seat upgrade platform that's done through text messaging. It was basically a way to say, look, we all use apps. We all know how to buy tickets. We all know how to attend these events, these sporting and concert events. But what happens when there's unsold inventory? Is there a way to get people into seats that are unused? And so thinking up a way to work real time, that was the key. But then in startup world, it's about execution and making those, building that network, making those partnerships and all those connections. So that's kind of like the world that I'm in right now, and I love it.
That's awesome. Okay, thanks. That was a great opener. It feels like I'm curious whether or not we've got participants on the call that are wearing their plaid and sort of the great Canadian Fireside Chat. I know we didn't necessarily, the three of us, honor that today, but that's a thought for next time. Kicking off the first Fireside Chat with both of you is such a thrill. And so when I think about the way that the world has changed and how we've had to adapt to a new way of doing business for everybody, whether that be in the innovation economy, small, medium businesses and larger enterprise, entrepreneurs are facing many challenges. So when COVID first happened, things did change pretty quickly. And maybe because we're part of the technology sector, we can adapt really quickly to some of that by virtue of the way that we work, the way that we operate, and maybe perhaps with the DNA that's part of the sector that we participate in. So from both a personal and professional side, how did you decide to calibrate sort of mentally so that you can rally yourself, your team, and pivot your organization where you needed to? Brennan, shall we start with you?
Sure. So I think the first thing that I had to do, or I see myself being forced to do, was that you have to take a step back to kind of like learn about what exactly is going on. I mean, it was funny because it was the same for everybody. Everybody's in the same boat, but here it was. It was trying to find out. What are the industry fears? And there were a lot. I mean, there still are right now. We don't know if sports and entertainment is coming back, or in what form, what fashion. And so all the businesses that surround that world are affected and don't have answers. So I think the real thing was, instead of just charging ahead with business as usual, it was about, okay, let's learn what the true problem is, figure out the fears, and then maybe we can adapt to figure out solutions. So that now it's the perfect time to suggest them. I mean, there is no wrong answer at this point. And I think just that, taking a step back and then seeing the problem, picking out some solutions would be probably the best way to adapt. And that's kind of like what I set out to do as well.
That's terrific. And Heather, how about you?
Yeah, so of course I echo what Brennan's saying. We did a lot of that stepping back, but we did it, as he says, really quickly. In my career, obviously I've had lots of ups and downs. And I was actually speaking to somebody last night about, as we all call it, COVID, is this like the worst? And funny enough, because I don't know if it is, but it definitely, as Brennan said, because of the fact that it impacted the entire world and every child, every person, every business, every small, every large, it's just something that none of us could have ever imagined. So of course, as an entrepreneur, anybody who's been an entrepreneur as long, again, as I have, resilience is in my DNA, because you have a lot of ups and downs. And there's always one phrase that I use, and I've used it often when I don't get a client or we work really hard to get a contract and or keep a contract and we might lose it. And it's just keep moving forward. And so we really quickly, I'm all about ranting and figuring it out and going through the change process, but we come through really quickly. We go down, we, suck our thumb, and then we come right back out the other end. And we just said, let's keep moving forward. And so that's, what we did, and it's paid us back.
Yeah, it's interesting, like both of you sort of say, like when we're all in this together in a global space. And so very quickly we can extend empathy and understanding. And the resiliency then becomes the thing of like, I have other models that can show me how to do that, or I can very quickly have the bounce back, or very quickly can explain concepts to my team, to my investors, to my, my peers, that we have some common language around it. So perhaps that's some of the silver lining, that we can, have conversations in a way that we might not have been if we were on our own, each one of us trying to do the best that we can.
Yeah, and I'm a big collaborator. I wrote that down. I said, when it first happened, it's just who I am. It's how I run the company. I have a small group of people that we call phone a friend, and we immediately got on. We use multiple venues, Skype, you name it, we're on it, and we just collaborated and learned. And I'm not necessarily a reader. It's not what I do. I get Cole's Notes versions, and I get what's needed to know. And then that's their role, is giving that to me. So it was that, as you're saying, Christina, was a really neat experience. So I guess at the end, if you collaborate, you'll come out with that better plan versus all on your own.
I totally agree. And I'm sure, Brennon, we've had conversations about, collaboration's secret sauce, or collaboration is key. Exactly. And I think that's really embedded in the work that we're doing at Tech Alliance. And there's so many opportunities to collaborate. And there's this necessity that's happened as a result of COVID that we do have to lock arms with others. Do you have anything more to add to that, Brennon?
You know what? I think the fact that we're all in the same boat, I mean, it's almost like we feel like, especially in entrepreneurship or even like a startup, we feel like we're an island of one, right? And no matter what, it's like us against them, or at least this is mentality out there. But this whole COVID situation has changed like everything. And it's even the people who almost like know what they're talking about are caught, unprepared. And I just feel like, because we're all in the same boat, this is actually helping everybody, at the same time.
Well, and interesting, because you're both at different stages with your companies. So with that, when you take sort of the collaborative opportunity and you think of growth mindset, how have you maintained a growth mindset in each of your two companies? Maybe a couple of things that resonate with you. Brennon, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, like, the way I always looked at it is that even in my industry, like when we were, like we are in startup mode, we've always just began to scratch the surface, right? This is the level we're at. And there were so many things that whole thing, you don't know what you don't know. And you charge ahead and you try to like figure out things, and you're learning things. And then in this case, where it's COVID, it's like those industries that are the pillars that know everything, they're in the same boat. And I guess it all comes back to that, where the growth mindset is just that we have a lot to learn, okay? And we're always going to keep learning. And then we just have to, in this next year, God knows what's going to happen, especially in my industry. There's a lot of question marks, but I think you just have to keep on, putting that to, the thinking cap on and learning for what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. Like, I think when you think of growth mindset and abundance mindset, that there is enough for everybody. It's not like the pie is split by 8 and everybody gets their slice, but it's really like, how do you, what's the abundance thinking? How do we all sort of pull up to the buffet and support one another through that, that experience? So, and growth mindset certainly is like, how are you, scaling? How do you look at your annual recurring revenue? How do you make sure that you're attracting talent? And how do you keep that growth mindset then at a time where there are some experiences that are sort of tapping the brakes for businesses? So Heather, do you want to expand on that, of how you've maintained your growth mindset? A couple of things that are resonating with you.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a little story too, but so in my consulting background forces me to have pretty good discipline around setting goals and plans and creating strategies, because that's what we do in our consulting business. So I always say I have to, put my money where my mouth is, or do what I preach. So we immediately got 4 goals, and the 4 goals were very simple, but they actually governed everything we did. And that was, we work very hard, as all of us do, to get our clients. Every single person, acquisition is a very difficult thing in this day and age because of competition. So we, as a team, agreed that we will lose no clients over this period of time. And as Brennon says, in the beginning, I had no clue when I was getting back from my one little vacation in the year that I would be sent up to Bala, where I was going to self-quarantine, and here I still sit. away from Toronto where I work. So we had that goal, no customers to be lost. The second goal, of course, and this is how we built, and watch that, that's that goal, understanding that we don't want to lose a client, but we also want to run beside our clients. And we wanted to help our dealers specifically to be the best that they can be. So my team calibrated with that at the center, and they just went after it. I literally get chills, but without that goal, I really believe they wouldn't have. And we could have floundered very easily to sit at the bottom of that gully that I talk about and kind of done the, oh boy, what are we going to do type of thing. So that was our second. Our third was to be good to our employees and to keep them working, and to do the same, to try to stay out in front. And of course, the fourth and really important, it drove our growth, is to survive after the 6 months period, whenever that would be ending. So again, just to summarize there, it would be how you stay in growth mode is to have some really solid goals. And that just drove, say, the COVID assessment that you were speaking about, Christina. Since then, we've also, our VP has, again, worked with our team, a cross-functional team, to do a symptom checker for one of our clients in Northern California. So we calibrated there really quickly to get that done, all just to kind of stay afloat.
Yeah.
And survive.
That's incredible. Like, I think of even us at Tech Alliance and how we knew our time is now. If there was any time period that our relevancy was the greatest, it is right now. And so definitely there's that feeling of there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But the truth is, as we stay close to our technology community, as we stay close to clients that we're serving and people who are within our orbit, it allows us to do that pulse check and the temperature check to make sure, are we doing the right thing? What's most needed right now by our customers, our customer base? What's most needed right now? And how do we as a team pivot to make sure that we're meeting that demand? And you know, that might be a bit of a shift from our mandate, or a shift from our day-to-day operations, but it's so wild and so inspiring to actually be able to do that and behave much like a startup in that capacity. So I love the examples that both of you gave about growth mindset and even, you know, some of that positivity and allowing yourself to move within that spectrum of, you know, how are we feeling today and how's our team feeling today, and find others to be part of that. So maybe that's a good way to segue into the next question of, like, what has been the most difficult thing that you've faced in building your strategy and your go forward sort of next steps based on the industry that you're in. Heather, why don't we start with you, and then Brennan will shift to you.
Yeah, so you know, it's interesting because London has a lot of automotive tech companies, and so it's funny how we kind of all gather in London and surrounding areas. So anybody that knows automotive, it's very difficult to get a hold of them. They never really email us back. So I think we were feeling prior to COVID and that the pandemic, that we were, you know, like so many people, we were on the move and we were in a real growth mode. So for us, building that strategy, or building the don't lose, stay out in front goals, we had to then come up with, well, how do we get to our clients when they're not really answering? So we've done some really creative things. One thing is we call it Client Advocate Program, where we're using, Bree and I went a couple of years ago to California, and we learned about, you know, fish where the fish are. And so we thought our fans rave about us in HR4. So we have been creative there, and I prepared a letter, and we called it Client Advocate Program. So we're asking our clients to advocate for us because we feel that our clients will listen to their peers more than they'd listen to us. So again, I guess the underlying message there would be creative. And as you are, you know, again, Tech Alliance, obviously the creativity that's coming out of your operations, pretty impressive. So you're obviously doing it too.
Thanks, Heather. And Brennan, how about you? Completely different industry.
Yeah.
Among the most difficult things you've faced.
Yeah, so my world is the ticketing industry, and the ticketing industry is pretty much an old boys club. And that old boys club has a lot of gatekeepers to even enter this club. So your battle's uphill anyways. But and especially because this old boys club, they're kind of like adverse to change. You know, they talk the whole, hey, we're going digital, we're going to be doing things, but essentially they've been doing business the same way for the last 25 years. That's the truth. So yes, uphill battle, definitely. But when you feel you have a strong product, then it's just a matter of education, right? What the industry is they're definitely ripe for change. They know they need a change. I sometimes feel like COVID is that change. It's literally a good change that they need. And I think it allows me to almost come down to like a level playing field, because when they do get back to business as usual, they're going to want every tool in their tool belt for bringing as many people back out there and recuperating all this money and these hundreds of millions of dollars that they've been losing for the last few months. And I think there is no bad strategy at this point. It's about just putting out options. And I'm hoping that our business will be one of those options so that we're successful in their eyes.
I love it, because the topic of today is start, reset, and succeed. And it's like this reset is perhaps the thing that's going to drive digital transformation in many systems where maybe inclusivity and diversity have not been a major player, or where we haven't seen introduction of new technology to create a different experience. And for you, it's the fan experience. And I can't help but think that the other side of this is such that the disruption will actually drive that digital transformation that has been very necessary in many communities and in many industries. So I love the fact that both of you come from very different industries and can talk about the capability of leaning on peers to endorse, leaning on folks that might think, well, there is got to be a better way of doing this business, and basically making the future work for us. Like at Tech Alliance, we've been saying we're making the future of work for us, as are many, many technology companies. And I think there's this opportunity for that success to come, following COVID, and the work that you're doing right now to ensure that you're setting yourself up for that reset. I think it's quite admirable. I'm very inspired by both of your stories. So I guess then the question, Brennon, back to you is then, so what do you do next? If there's sort of two roads on which you could choose, what skills and characteristics do you sort of bring forward that you've relied on that might be something that somebody else on the call would say, okay, I've sort of got that in my own toolkit. That's who I am. How do I actually activate that for the future and for my future growth? Anything that you can say?
Yeah, I think all entrepreneurs, they actually have this red light or green light. It's like go, no go, right? But unfortunately, and fortunately for the entrepreneur, it's always go. We need to go. But I think you go, but you have to always know, you never lose sight of what the end goal is, right? Yes, absolutely. COVID's, taken us for a loop, and I myself have no clue what sports and entertainment looks like even 6 months from now. But I do know there's still a need for what I was building in some way, shape, or form. And so as long as that market's still there, that product fit is still there, that opportunity is still there, then there's always a reason for me to continue. But to just say, stop, no, that's it, this thing's defeated me, I don't think that's in our DNA. And so I won't let it even be a thought until it proves me wrong, that kind of thing. But right now, I think it's like everything's fair game. And so why not continue?
So Heather, in your world, what's the fair game? What are the skills, characteristics that you've relied on, and what are sort of the choices that you have in front of you for you and your team?
Yeah, I think, we're excited. It's what you're saying. There's, I've spoken to a lot of people over the last couple of months, and I think, again, something really similar for all of us is that we felt these high points and a lot of low points. And again, whether you're young or middle-aged or old or in whatever size of company. So, for me, it is about seizing opportunity that I have seen come and present us. It always is the most difficult thing is getting the word out and distribution and that. So that will continue to be difficult for us because people aren't around. You have a reduced workforce still, and that's going to be in play for at least another 6 months. And people are overloaded, and a lot of people ride in the middle lane. Whether you're an entrepreneur, there's one or two entrepreneurs in the company. The rest of the people that work in the company are not necessarily entrepreneurs. So the entrepreneur has to buffer that. And maybe that's, as I'm talking, I'm listening to myself, that I think is my greatest gift that I can give to my staff or the people around me is to, because I get down sometimes, but then it's my job as a leader to buffer that and to know that, you know, I've got 20 people, but not all of them are that risky person. They're not all the go, as Brennon said. A lot of them are the red, like, are you sure we're going to do this type of thing? And so just kind of, again, it goes back to what I said, keep going. Last thing I wrote down earlier when I was thinking about our fireside chat was just the 80-20. Again, it's something that I've had and then I teach others. It's about, in this case, I'm going to flip it to be, don't spend 80% of your time talking about what's wrong and what's come out of COVID. Spend only 20%. Allow yourself that, but then mark a time. What we're doing now is we do 30-minute meetings, and we don't even talk about COVID in those meetings. It might be one section where we said, okay, what are the barriers? But we quickly move to, you know, what are the opportunities, and make sure that our staff are focused on the positive versus the negative. And that's, as a leader, that is your job. Or that's how I see my job anyway.
It's some of the fatigue that's come from discussion about COVID. That, you know, in our early days, even some of our early webcasts, the same, we were really focused on, you know, during COVID versus, you know, just as an entrepreneur, as a founder, or tech talent, or someone who is participating in a company for whom is led by somebody who has the green light on. I actually really love that you both reference that, because I think it's really key to have, you know, a couple of people within the team that are like, can we go amber, or can we just go to red for a minute? Just pause and think about, or can we decide to reprioritize? So I think that's great. And even bringing forward the concept of, you know, how do you engage entrepreneurial mindset within your teams to be thinking differently and to allow that innovation to thrive within your team or within your circle of influence that is helping you to push forward and propel the work that you do. So to swing it that way then, excuse me, what advice would you give to, you know, both startups and large organizations to continue to be resilient and to continue to not have the sort of fatigue that has come with some of these changing times, and cope with what you're going through? So Heather, why don't we start with you on that? So speaking a bit about the resiliency, whether you're a startup or a large organization, anything in between.
So, you know, it's a lot of the same that we've talked about. For us, again, I just like to give specific examples. We call it Project Thrive, and it is a strategy that came out due to the COVID, when we decided we were able to get the subsidy. I don't know if it's able or whatever, but that's what you call it in COVID. So I don't think it's a good thing that we were able to get it, because that would mean that we decreased our revenue, but we did, and we were able to do that. We also had a decreased workload, you know, even though we didn't lose a customer, by the way. So that's up to this point. We did have a significant reduction in workload. So we developed Project Thrive, and what Project Thrive is it's exactly what you just said, Christine. It's taking all of our employees, all 20 of them, and saying, okay, so before, what were the weaknesses that we had? And maybe we were too siloed for a small company. We didn't talk enough. Now we're all isolated at home. So what are we going to do to combat that, and then remembering our goals? And so we created this Project Thrive, where we put everybody into cross-functional teams. So now, as a senior team, and you know, a senior team, there's only 20 of us. It's the same people over and over, but the company's unanimously wants to stay in Project Thrive. So I won't leave it, and I will work I almost left it the other day. I said to Bree, let's put this person on this project to manage that. And she's like, well, no, we're putting that in a team. So she kicked me back, you know, to back to Project Thrive. So that's how I think the Minery will stay resilient. We'll stay on our toes, very, very, very lean. I will not make a move. I will not look at growth. I will just stay, you know, in Project Thrive and very lean to manage that next stage.
That's awesome. Brennon, how about you?
So I can talk obviously to startups, and usually startups, especially the ones I talk to, are 1 to 2 people, 3 max, and they feel like an island of one. You know, that's the world that we're in. It's like us against the world. That's the mentality we have. But I always go back to the best advice I can give is, don't forget why you did this. We chose to do this. We left our corporate gigs. We left our jobs and we chose to pick up with the skills that we've maybe gained over the years. And we believe in the idea, and we're also optimistic. So all I can really say is that, you know, that's the role that we play right now. And never lose sight, even though it feels like the world's ending. At this point, you just need to say, look, you're an entrepreneur. You'll figure it out. Our world is road bumps. This is just a bigger road bump. That's all it is, you know. And if you can get on the other side of that, you can that'll be your battle scar. I survived COVID, and I did it in startup mode. And if anybody can do that, I think you can say,
yeah,
you know,
for
that's
sure.
success.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% agree. If anybody can do it, it's an entrepreneur. If, you know, and then there's some of the power in when you play in innovation, when it is what you do. The interesting piece is when you surround yourself with people who think like that. It's like, you know, I'm going to survive this. It might look different, but this is my value, my idea. It's the things that I thought in the beginning that are the kinds of motivation for resiliency all the way through. So the last question, and then I've got a couple of questions that were submitted in advance and in the Q&A, but one of the questions in the Q&A is actually a perfect segue to this. So Brennon, I'm going to start with you first. The question is, what's next? So what's next for you? And then there's a question that came in on the Q&A that says, like, are there other areas of your business model or your concept that you can grow into? Particularly because you're obviously seeing that there's not an opportunity right this minute for the venues who are not yet open for performing arts and sports. And one of the comments was event management operations are in need of innovation. So what's next for you? And
well,
tell us about that.
Sure. I think the industry right now, the house is still on fire. They haven't put out the fire. Okay, so that's the first thing. So trying to put out good options or solutions, they don't even want to hear it, and rightfully so, because they are just trying to survive themselves.
Yeah.
When you have the amount of, and there's a lot of money in sports entertainment, we know that, all the businesses that support them. And so when it's not business as usual for them, they go into panic mode. How do we survive this? And you know what, that's fine. So for me personally, I'm on a little bit of a pause just until I get a little bit of feedback more when they're ready to take the concepts and then go with it. So what I've been doing personally is my forte is taking an idea to making your first dollar, that funding, getting that MVP done. And I've actually been coaching and advising a few startups that are exactly in that same boat. And for me, it's energizing, and I don't mind being creative for them. And if anything, it's beautiful, because then you're taking a professional in their industries and they know everything about it, and you're just giving them a few ideas that maybe they wouldn't have thought of otherwise, and then they get to that next level. So for me, it's kind of like paying it forward, especially with the new startups like myself.
I love it. Awesome.
Thanks.
Heather, how about you?
So just again, we have HR4 is a human capital management, or basically it's an HR platform that engages the workforce and connects the employees to all of the things that they need on a daily basis. So we've always stayed within automotive and reluctantly gone out of it for many reasons. We're self-funded. We don't have investors. It was a decision that we made, a few of us early days. So we've had to be really, again, clear about, okay, we got this amazing software that can scale, but if you go broader than dealers or auto, that just, you need more money. But you know, the reaction to COVID for us is, and I think our next step is came from us determining that we needed to split our software from, we have about 15 tools in our software for people into kits, and we're calling it HR Your Way. So that's a big change for us. It's something that I'm not as wanting to do as much, but my team's really encouraging us to go that route. So we're going to head there, and we're going to head out of auto. Not out, we still love auto, but we're going to broaden our horizons, head into construction. You know, pretty much all industries will open up our platform. Go slowly, make sure again we can survive, but we'll do that for sure.
That's awesome.
We're doing
so with disruption comes change.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to just have a quick look at some questions that we have here. Two really good ones. How do you get, and also a quick time check, we're 11:37, so we've got a couple of questions to go through that came from audience, and then of course we have our rapid fire, so we have to do that for sure because it's lots of fun and a great way to finish out. So I'll start with these next two questions. How do you get team buy-in when you're changing directions to do something new? So who wants to jump in on that one?
I think that's more of a Heather question, but maybe she can start off and then maybe I can chime in.
Sure.
You can for sure. So again, really quickly, because I definitely want to do that rapid fire. Oh my goodness. So I go and I sent it to my team this morning. It's ADKAR. So again, this is just a really quick tool that people could take away. You can't expect your team to change if you don't spend some time up front to engage them and to create awareness and desire. And that's what ADKAR is. And then you've got to build the knowledge. So if you're going to go into something new, like if you're going to, start to take your software in a different, direction, you can't just expect your employees to follow. So you literally, as a leader, you have to sit down, you have to do it over and over again. I encourage people not to just say, okay, we're going to change and this is why now, but you literally have to do that daily huddle with them, then create that awareness, desire, get them trained on it, and then go back and reinforce. And just, I always use the word as well, be really, really genuine in your approach to want to bring them along, because they listen to, as a leader, they listen to every single thing you say. That would be my advice there.
Always, the change is attached to our higher purpose, the value of our organization, right, the thing that we do. And when you make every member of the team feel like their contribution is attached to the main purpose, then there's some quick buy-in too. And I think that's the key, is to slow down, ensure with a genuine, authentic approach with members of the team and with other contributors, whether, for me, it's our board, it's our team, it's our entrepreneurs and residents, it's our wider community and our ecosystem partners, being able to talk about why this change attaches ourselves to relevancy and our greater purpose, then most people come on side with that. So anything more that you want to add, Brendan? I know that you've led teams in the past and have had a really incredible career outside of your startup.
I think I'd just like to say that for the last 2 years while building Dibz, essentially Dibz was always a texting technology for the masses. That's what it was. And then it just so happens that one of the best scenarios to include this is in the sporting and entertainment world, because there's lots of inventory, there's lots of people wanting to upgrade. In the last few weeks, months, since COVID started, there was always kind of like talk with my closest colleagues to be like, where else can we take this? We know the medical field is huge right now. All this med tech coming out, maybe there's something that our technology could be adapted to in that world, or maybe even in some other verticals. But I think what it is that's where we start to think, okay, well, let's find out if what we have is still a gold mine in terms of our service offering. Maybe there's other verticals we can use it in. And that's really how our mindset is right now, if we do have to expand in that way.
I love it. I think we may have covered most of this theme throughout our discussion today, because we have talked about the uncertainty, but as a small business and, lean teams, how do you actually plan for uncertainty? Or how do you plan for the next bit of uncertainty? Do you actually make a plan B or a plan C? And is that embedded in your strategy? Who wants to take that one on?
I can start for sure. So I think we've been so laser focused on plan A for the longest time. Plan A was, let's solve a problem in venues everywhere where they have unsold inventory and people who want that and have no way to attain it other than some app that maybe they don't know how to use. So we've always been so laser focused on that world. It's hard to think of a plan B or a plan C. COVID forced us into that thinking. And then I think it goes back to earlier what I was saying. It's like, okay, well, plan A was always to build a technology for the masses to solve this problem. Can we take it to other verticals? And what are those verticals? So plan B and plan C are those other verticals. And is there a big enough market? Can we convince the stakeholders that have invested into us so far that we can take it there and be just as successful in that world as we are in ours right now? And I think that would be my plan B and plan C, but I'm not discounting plan A yet, because I want to wait and see a little bit more till we make that decision.
Awesome. How about you, Heather?
Yeah, so my advice to somebody, I don't know if we need a plan A, plan B, plan C. It's like having your alarm clock set, your phone on, getting the hotel to call and wake you up. And it all takes a lot of time to do all that. And you still might sleep through because you'll forget your plan C is in the filing cabinet that's locked. So I think for me, my advice to somebody would be, it's just things that I've learned along the way. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, if that's the right saying. Don't live beyond your means. A lot of people today, I have been accused of, or not accused of, but have been something, I can't think of the words. I have sometimes lived beyond my means. And I think that getting that advice from people is really sound. So if you stay within your means and you don't put all your eggs in one basket and you continue on being lean, then you should be okay. Definitely having an eye to the future and understanding the economy and what's happening is extremely important. But I think the world's changed now and it's just kind of moving forward. Don't get too caught in needing to have all those plans in place.
That's terrific. Thank you for sharing. I feel like we've had so much rich dialogue already today for the kickoff of our Fireside Chat summer series. And I thank you both for the preparation and your thoughts about, being able to think specifically about your experience right now and your team's experience right now and the technology that you are deploying into market, but that you are also really comfortable with talking more high level about, how to behave in entrepreneurs and how to have the right conversations or how to ask for help when you need it and how to be resilient also at the same time. So we're going to shift into our rapid fire because that's always fun. And so with as few words as possible, I think we're going to get started. So I'll ask the question and I'll start with you, Heather, and then Brennon, you'll do immediate follow, and then I'll ask the next question. You cool with that?
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay. So the first one, top lesson learned or takeaway during COVID.
Oh gosh. Okay, move your feet.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm going to go with be over prepared.
Awesome. Okay, hardest thing to adapt to.
Oh gosh, aging.
I'm going to say not being able to meet up with someone and have a coffee. That's the hardest thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
so true.
Not getting your hair done.
Yeah.
My hair done.
No kidding. Okay, best tool to stay connected.
HR4. It's a tool to communicate.
WhatsApp for me, personally.
Awesome. Okay, so Heather, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I think I wanted to probably be a singer. Not sure if that's a good thing or something in that, in entertainment in that area.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Brennan?
I wanted to be a vet, but I never had the grades for it, so I had to drop that pretty quickly.
I don't think I had the voice for it either, Brennan, so we're in the same boat there.
And today I'm channeling my inner Ellen, my inner Oprah. So that's
You're good. You're good though. You're good. You're good.
Okay, so ocean or mountains?
I'm ocean.
Yeah, I'm going to say ocean too.
Cool. Wine or beer?
Wine.
I'll go beer. I'll go beer on this one.
Awesome. Would you choose a book or a podcast?
Probably a podcast.
Okay.
I'm going to say podcast too. I do way too much driving, so it's my serenity on my drive.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the final question of rapid fire is really final words of advice. Heather, do you want to start?
Yeah, so as we continue to go down this road, it's what I feel we've talked a lot about is just staying really positive and don't let yourself get into that gully. And it's what one of the audience members asked, like, how do you take what you've got and move what you've got to something else? But be careful as you do that, because that could lead to I always say, one little idea, you've got about 20 things that you have to do. So it's just kind of figuring out your next move. How can you take what your value proposition is and shift it so that it can be seen as relevant today? A lot of what the user wants, whether you're a customer or business, is they want value for their money and whatever they buy. And so it's really us figuring out and others to what's your value proposition and how can you differentiate between your competitors.
That's great.
Right.
Thank you. How about you, Brennan?
I think for me, it's always been the same. No matter what, always keep looking ahead. Never feel too comfortable where you're at, because just when you think everything's cool, a world pandemic starts, and nobody could calculate that. Nobody could see that. But I think it just goes back to how deeply I believe always prepare for the unknowns. And as long as you're on your toes, you're quick to change when that does happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Like that's sort of a wow experience for us to have this conversation with both of you. Heather and Brennon, we're very privileged to have both of you on our board of directors at Tech Alliance. And when I think of how you're excelling through the disruption that we've experienced and how these kinds of lessons are really our carry forward, and some of the difficult choices that you've had to make, and those on the call and those in our community have had to make, and to be looking at new opportunities as they emerge. So thank you for sharing your insight. Bonfire fireside chats are always more fun with friends. So for those of you on the call, we just want to encourage you to join us the next week at the same time for preparing for the unpredictable with Tech Alliance board members, both Peter Dillon from Siskins and Gord Hart of Select Path. You can register and fire off your most pressing legal, financial, planning, and access benefits and interruption insurance, or any other pressing questions for both Peter and Gord next week. So again, Heather and Brennon, thank you both. And that's it for everybody.